Research and Translation is an institute that is a resource to find and use historical Hawaiian knowledge. There's literally a treasure trove of Hawaiian language newspapers that were published over a long period of time, and a major focus of the institute is really research around translation of this information. What we're looking for, and we're delighted to be working with Puakea and Noelani on this, we will hire 2 translators who are going to go back through the Hawaiian language newspapers and try to find things about our study areas, things that relate to water, things that relate to organisms in the water, just information that will help us understand the history of the area prior to when people started putting in wells and monitoring things. So this we will also include in our repository of information. This is a very exciting part of this project. Okay, so our second goal, so that's all of, I would call the first goal really a lot of data collection and ways in which we want to improve our conceptual models. The second goal is to create this resource where we'll be able to collect data and build models, and then also to build a number of different kinds of models. One, numerical models, and then also Kim Burnett and Chris Wada will be working on using the predictions from those models in economic modeling studies to forecast water availability and quality, and also studying economic impact. This is kind of a complicated diagram, but this shows the diagram of what this data resource will look like. We will have a core repository. This will sit over in our data center, and into that repository will go all the data that we generate from this project, any data that any of our stakeholders or partners are willing to share with us or want to make available to us for certain things. We may even translate, or not translate, but we may digitize some paper records that are out there to get some more historical data in there. So the data repository here interacts with our modeling platform. And from the modeling platform, then you can pull the data, build the models, and then create a number of products. Those being data products that would be predictions from our models, or also a number of other, also use the modeling output to develop decision support tools. One of the things that we're interested in exploring in more detail in recent conversations with Steve Anthony from USGS is they have a number of models that are already built. They're very interested in us possibly hosting those models and making those available to other folks for scenario testing. So those are models that have been built in the past. They've been, published and reviewed and all that. But at this point, there isn't a very easy way for someone to be able to use one of those models to test another scenario. So we're not quite sure how we'll do that, but that's one of our goals, is to make those models available to the community, to people who want to test scenarios. But I think it would also be a really wonderful opportunity for students to be able to understand more about how models work and test some of their own scenarios. The other big part of the cyber infrastructure platform is that it supports data aggregation, management, data sharing, dissemination, things like that, and the creation of models within the platform. We're also designing it to support complex scientific workflows. And the idea here is that for scientists that have to collect data, do analysis, create visualizations, what we want to be able to do is to automate as much of this as we can with the software platform. And this is an example. And the way in which we do this is the scientists, and this was an interaction with Kiana Frank with my group, basically sits down and draws up their scientific workflow, however complex it is. And then what we do is to basically take that scientific workflow and then implement it in a platform that allows you to do most of the steps here automatically through an interface. So this is the software platform that we chose to support the project has been I would say in development for more than 10 years, supports a number of different very large science projects. But what you have is a very simple interface that allows you to go and find your data files, choose whatever kind of computational platform you'd like to use, or whatever computational sets of steps you'd like to use, and basically take your data, run your things, and basically do it all from one interface. And the idea here is to automate as much of this as possible, and also just make it faster and easier for folks to do their science. So this platform we'll be ready to go with this, I believe, in January. So we'll be starting to use that to process data. This is our development timeline. We had to create a lot of these timelines as part of our strategic planning process. But what this shows is these are all the different types of data that we will put in the repository. These are the different sets of workflows. We'll have one for microbial work, for geochemistry work, for processing MT data, the magnetotelluric data. This then goes into a couple of different data storage areas, and also we will do good curation of the data so it's easier to find. These then go into our computational engines. And ultimately, this is really the stuff that the scientists and our collaborators will be working on. Ultimately, we will want to disseminate and will disseminate these data products to stakeholders and to community members. That will take a little bit longer, but this is where we're at. We actually, just this afternoon, right before this meeting, we met with Tom Jambaluka's group. They are going to be they will be the first sets of folks that will store their data in the central repository. And we met with them today to get them started on uploading and categorizing their data. So we're underway on this part of the project. Okay, so I think one of the biggest challenges, I'm glad Ali is here, he could certainly speak to this. We need to create numerical models to really make good predictions about and do scenario testing about the aquifers that we will be studying. This again is a picture out of, or image from Delmenoki's paper in 2005. This just, for those of you who may have never seen one of these models before, this is a model of basically of the Pearl Harbor aquifer. Shows a very large grid, which in each one of those grid boxes, you need to characterize the type of rocks there, the permeability of the rock, all different kinds of parameters of that. And the model needs to be spatially explicit and as anatomically correct as possible. And that's where many of these models have some weaknesses in terms of the deep understanding of the structures that underlie water flow in these different areas. So this just shows, this model is now 2005. This is another image which actually shows, because this is one of our areas that we're interested in studying. We can talk about this more. The impact of these sediment fills in the valleys within the Pearl Harbor aquifer. As you can see, there's a little line right there that indicates one of these valley fills. These are thought to impede water flow across the different areas within the aquifer, and understanding the structure of those, their depth, their composition can really help to improve a model like this, because in many cases a geological structure will be in place, but we don't know enough of the characteristics, we don't know the detailed characteristics of it to be able to implement in the model correctly. So these kinds of models really bring all of the data that I was talking about together and into a platform where we can build a model that is and calibrate it that is a good representation of our study area, and then use that model to do scenario testing and ask questions. And then the outputs of these, both the conceptual and numerical models, will be used by Kim Burnett's group to as input to some of her economic modeling efforts. So this is a big challenge for us, but we are, sorry, let me back up to, well, actually I'll talk about that later. Okay, ultimately, what we want to be able to do once we have some models, and whether they're conceptual models or numerical models, is to start to use all that data and those models as in decision support exercises. And I imagine we'll do this a lot as our own internal group, but this is an opportunity to bring in our agency collaborators, our community stakeholders into an environment where we can start to really work through some of our model predictions or some of the things that we've discovered. So what I'm showing you here is this is a very large display. This is called the Cyber Canoe, and this has been developed by Jason Lee's lab. This is actually a shot from his lab there. What is a very large interactive display, but what's nice about a Cyber Canoe is that you can bring in a whole bunch of people into the room. They can all have their data, their models, their visualizations on their laptops, but what the Cyber Canoe allows you to do is for everyone to be able to put their stuff up there. And what this does for a group meeting is it really, I think, enhances the ability of folks to understand each other's data and hopefully make decisions about conflicting issues. The other thing we're using the Cyber Canoe for is collaboration with our colleagues at Hilo. So they, as part of the project, they are building a Cyber Canoe. This system also works very well for collaboration. So it's better than a video conferencing system because the way in which it works is that if you have a Cyber Canoe in your lab and someone has one in their lab, you can have a joint session where you're all putting your data virtually onto the same screen. So you can see everything they can see everything you can see. And I know that Jason has been very successful in using this technology to do distance learning and a bunch of other interesting things. He taught a data visualization class last year remotely from Oahu and Hilo. So we'll be using this a lot in our work. Okay. Now this